coffee lovers, and welcome to Bean on the Brain. Today, we're talking about a brewer that has been around for the company's been around for 100 years. They're going to celebrate their 100th anniversary this year. I'll show you some photos of this brewer. They've got a 100th anniversary brewer out. That's 1925. Even doing the research on this, I think that struck me because it seems like coffee's brand new in the way that the drippers generate buzz in the coffee industry. Everything seems like it's brand new and you got to buy the new thing, and that's the way to go. And the design of this hasn't been around for quite that long, more about 1973, but still that's a long time. That's years and years before I was even born, and I'm not a young person anymore. But I want to talk today about the story it has to tell and some unique characteristics that are worth exploring. The Kono Coffee Siphon Company was established in 1925, and it was the first to produce a coffee siphon. If you don't know what that is, there was a video I just watched about it being the best way to brew coffee, and that might be true. There's a vacuum quality to a siphon that produces a cup that is individual, it's singular in the way that it tastes, and to some people, I'm sure that is the best way. In 1973, the second president of the company designed this cone-shaped dripper. And the third president adapted the design for home use, which is sort of what we have today. So it may be new to you. You may have never heard of it. It is mostly in Japan, although you can get it from, I saw it on Rogue Wave Coffee, which is out of Canada. You can get some beans and a dripper and get it shipped to you for free. Pretty nice. I'd have to check. 8-ounce coffee has a lot of different things too, but it's pretty restricted and definitely hasn't broken through like the Hario has. It was finalized. It took 5 years to develop it, and it's definitely known for the quality. My favorite part about its cup is that you can brew a smaller amount, and I think that it is worthwhile. The last video I did, we talked about the Fellow Stag dripper, and while you could do a small amount, flat bottom drippers just aren't good. And we talked a little bit about bed depth and wanting to have some depth. And so I think a smaller dripper like this allows you to brew a smaller amount of coffee. And you might say, why would I want to do that? I want to brew all my coffee and enjoy it. I think there's two reasons. One, I think that you could get a better cup if you have a smaller amount of coffee, because you just can get the water and everything immersed in there, get it through quickly, and have less chance to get those off flavors. Two, for me, and this may be different for you, is that it's fun to brew. Part of it is the ritual of it. Part of it is having a couple of cups of coffee a day and just enjoying the process of brewing. And I can't drink that much coffee, despite what people think. I don't have all that much coffee throughout a day. So if I brew a smaller amount each time, then I can enjoy the process and try a different variety of coffee. So I think that having a dripper like this is nice to have in the arsenal for those smaller cups. Now, if you're looking at it, at first glance, you might think it's another conical dripper. What's the big deal? And of course, if you've seen the Time More, the V60, there are a lot of similarities. Even the UFO that I'll talk about in a future video, there's a lot of similarities, but there's a difference that sets it apart. And each one of these has a unique differentiator. Unlike the V60 and many other conical drippers, the Kono doesn't have ribs on the upper side. So actually, when you're putting the filter in, you can run your finger around the outside to get a tighter seal on there, and that allows for less bypass. And we talked about bypass in prior videos, and I think that it is something to always consider, whether it's the Pulsar or your Fellow or whatever dripper you have. You want to at least minimize bypass. But the ribs are located on the lower half of the cone, and the small detail has a significant impact on how it brews. When you place that paper filter in the Kono, it creates some suction or vacuum seal around. Again, the seal means that water doesn't bypass down the sides of the dripper. Instead, it's forced through the bed of coffee. And this increases the probability of a more even extraction. However, the ribs at the bottom do create a good flow rate. This is that balance that I talk about. What you don't want is that stalling effect, where you can get a forever drawdown, or you may have to actually like pick up the paper because you get so much in there. Because the water has limited areas to go, you get a more predictable result from brew to brew. You can taste the difference when you make changes in your brewing parameters, whether you adjust the water temperature, your grind size, or your brew ratio. The Kono will let you taste the changes in the cup. And again, those small cups allow you to play around with it a little bit more. With the Kono, though, I really do believe you can get a well-balanced and delicious cup of coffee. The design of the Kono ensures that water spreads evenly throughout the filter and again keeps you that steady speed. Then the reduced sediment improves the airflow so that you can get that consistent flow throughout the brew. All right, let's talk a little bit about actually brewing it. And I'll again have a video where I'm brewing up a cup of coffee on the Kono at the end. You'll find that many coffee enthusiasts are drawn to the unique brewing characteristics of this dripper. For those of you who like to experiment with different methods, here's a basic approach that has been shared by some folks who use the Kono. First off, let's start with your grind size. A coarser grind, I'd say, is generally recommended. One of the people that I look to, Lance Hedrick, who uses this as his daily, he calls it his daily driver. I don't even know what that means, since if you get into this, you're going to have lots of different drippers that you play with, but he's brewing with it, I guess, every single day. So I'd try, again, for a reference point, 45 clicks on a Commandante if you have it. So a thicker, about the size of like sea salt. Maybe sea salt are a little more fine than that. Pretty coarse for a pour over dripper. And again, you've got that smaller grind size, so you can get a greater depth. Let's talk about some water temperature. I recommend choosing your water depending on the type of water that you have and the type of beans. You can go really high with your water temperature on this if you've got a lightly roasted coffee, but you can go down too to cooler brews. This is, again, I've been watching some videos on Japanese culture and some of the coffee shops over there, and a lot of them have darker roasted beans, much darker than the third wave or the more well-known roasters in the US or Norway or Europe do. They roast very light, and Japanese culture, at least from what I'm seeing in some of these videos, is a much darker roast. And so then you might want to lower the temperature, even as low as like 88 degrees Celsius. So it just kind of depends on the type of bean. I think that's always something to consider when you're choosing your water temperature. All right, what about the coffee to water ratio? I stick to my usual 1:16. You don't have to go too crazy on this. 12 to 200, 14 to 250. I think all of those are great ratios to use. One of the cool things about the Kono dripper is that it comes in two sizes. So you have your choice of different sizes, of course. So you've got the kind of 01, 02, V60, if you're familiar with those. You also have different filter options. They have their own filters and they fit really well. Again, if you want that complete seal on the top, it's nice to have the Kono filters. I think that they are the thickest paper and have the slowest flow rate. So it just sort of depends on what kind of brew that you're looking to get. When I was looking through videos on Kono, as I was considering purchasing it, it was often recommended to use the Kono filters. Why would you want to add a Kono dripper to your collection? I've got a V60. I've got a Pulsar. I have some other drippers. Well, the key here is consistency. Again, looking for your dripper that is perfect for the sweet, vibrant cup and gives you the option to brew a smaller quantity. So if you've got an 02 V60, this would be my smaller dripper. You could get an 01 V60. Again, there is some sense in that because you kind of get to know the dripper. So totally understand that. But for me, it's fun to play with a different size plus the different setup of it with the ribs and the seal across the top. Kind of an interesting way to think about it. One thing I did want to note is I'd have to look at what the 100th anniversary Kono is going to be made out of, but the Kono is made of an acrylic resin. There are lots of colors that you can get it in, such as clear, cherry pink. It's important to note that the acrylic resin has a heat resistant temperature of 90 degrees Celsius. Now, you might be saying, didn't you just say that you sometimes use water off boil? Yes. Is that great with plastic? Probably not. I think that one of the newer versions of it rated it up to a higher temperature, so that could be the type of plastic that they're using. You got to make that decision for yourself. Obviously, I think that the material that it's made out of certainly hasn't cracked under many brews under high temperature. Obviously, again, it was designed with the darker roasts in mind. So if you're going to use those with the darker roast, it would make a lot of sense to use the lower temperature. And then you don't have to worry about the 90 degrees Celsius. You can brew at 88 degrees Celsius and you'll be just fine with that. In the end, I really do believe that the Kono dripper is a great option for anyone looking for consistency, high quality brew experience. It's user friendly. It allows you to explore some of the nuances in coffee. It gives you that small dose. I think it'll become a favorite in your daily brewing routine. If you're looking to step up your coffee game and explore more coffees, I think it's a great choice to consider. All right, let's take a look at this brew. So again, we got our Kono set up. I actually did this one with a mellow drip there and a Crew stir stick. So sometimes I'll use different instruments. Again, I think we can talk more about the mellow drip sometime. And you can see one of the issues I had here with this brew, I didn't have a Kono filter in here. And you can see it's not quite suctioned on the sides. And now you can run your finger around there to get a little bit better suction. But those are areas where you could potentially get some bypass, since I don't have that tight suction to the wall. So start out with that center pour. I did the divot with my Crew stick there. Sometimes I'll agitate with the Crew stick. You could also do a just longer bloom. I think one of the videos I watched, they even recommended like a 2-minute bloom. Sure. I think that just kind of depends on how fresh your coffee is and what you're looking to get out of it. I did a 60 gram bloom here, and then I decided to mellow drip the rest of it. So the mellow drip, again, for me, adds more clarity. I'll go into my thoughts in more depth on the mellow drip some other time. But I love the clarity it gives. It gives less agitation. So given kind of that shower screen effect, doesn't mean no agitation. It's still going to agitate that brew bed, but you get the suspension of fines and it ends up not stalling. And there is sometimes an issue with some stalling on this, because again, you get that suction around the upper end and you don't want to get it too many fines to migrate down to the bottom of the dripper, because you could get some stalling because you're not going to get the bypass of it. So you can see the kind of consistent flow rate that you get. So I did again another about 50 grams there. I'll do another 50 or maybe 100 grams here. Finish. This is my 50 to 215 ratio, which is a pretty good amount of coffee for me. It's like 1 cup of coffee. Again, my thought with these type of brews is brew more often, enjoy more coffee, get a chance to experience more coffees. Just a lot of fun. And again, you see that fast, consistent drawdown, just smooth all the way to the end. An easy dripper to use. This is just one of those things that's a no-brainer for me. You want a small dripper, you definitely should take a look. This, you can see how fast the flow was on this one. Sometimes it is, depending on the type of filter that you use, but I guarantee it was still a great brew. And if you want to, you get a fast brew like that, you tighten up the grind a little bit, and you can get a longer brew out of it, no problems. One of my favorite cups, I need to talk about this cup too. I've mentioned Lance several times in these videos. This is Magnolia Mountain. This is their cup. Definitely worth checking out. They make some amazing ceramics. That's all I've got for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it.